Hey, morning. Hello, all. This is our sort of mega roundup of discussion of post-election summary with the entire Brown Pandit team from wherever we are across the world. Let me start off with a quick rundown of what happened, which everyone anyway knows. So it wasn't exactly the 400 par or whatever. The BJP and Modi just about managed to cross the majority. That too, BJP by themselves fall well short of the magic 272 mark, and with the allies, uh, single allies, Nitish, Naidu, and a bunch of others, they would, and apparently now a few other more have joined, and they'll probably end up reaching 300 or whatever. Now, the overall summary is that yes, in the sense that when the dust has settled and we look at the whole thing dispassionately, it emerges as if finally that Modi did win for the record third time. So that has to be accepted. So it's definitely not a defeat by any standards. Winning in a country like India, that to third time, beating double anti-incumbency is obviously something to be proud of. So they have done that. However, uh, it's a pretty serious wake-up call for BJP, basically because of the five most populous states in India in terms of MPs, which is basically UP with 80, Bengal with 42, then Tamil Nadu with 39, Maharashtra rather second with 48, then Tamil Nadu, Bihar 40, Tamil Nadu 39. So basically between UP, Bengal, Bihar, Tamil Nadu, and Maharashtra, BJP seems to have lost in the bigger three, which is basically UP, Bengal, and then even in Tamil Nadu, it's almost like zero. Only the other two states they have probably done a bit. Bengal, of course, they have sort of not done well. So, which essentially means that in the states where they were supposed to do pretty well, they did not, which is basically UP and Bengal. And in Tamil Nadu, where there was obviously a lot of hype, and I myself waxed eloquent with Umar Saab for about an hour saying that how the young leader Annamalai is supposedly going to open the account here. He did not. So to that extent, it's been a bit of a sobering wake up call for BJP. There are a lot of reasons, obviously, in the other in these three states, which we would be discussing at length. I suppose the rest of the hour. So, but that was sort of the highlights. Having said that, this election has also shown BJP to be a pan-India party in the sense that they have covered a fair bit of ground in the east. They've pretty much conquered Orissa, so to speak, which bodes very well for them. They've opened their account in Kerala. One of our colleagues, Manish, may have to eat his words here. That was something which even I did not expect. So to that extent, that's been there. And some of the other states where they had expanded in the past, like in the Northeast and all, while they have made some losses, they're still there. So overall, summary, I guess, is that compared to expectations, yes, they've fallen short. But they're still a force to be reckoned. And some of the numbers, especially in the states they lost, should be more worrying for BJP. And I'm sure they will sort of analyze in days to come. But there are certain fault lines that have opened up in some of these states, like UP especially, which doesn't really augur well for the future, both as a country as well as for BJP, especially the way in which the opposition seems to have played a narrative and won. Now, there are two ways of looking at it. There is a positive way in a way which BJP can look at it and sort of try to win back. But there is also a certain, fault lines that opposition seems to have played very well, which sort of seems to let some of these genie out of the box in terms of, the whole caste census and some of those things, which we will discuss. So that's a sort of a longish summary, and I'll sort of stop here for the others to take it up from there.
So I'll take it up from there. Shrikant, clearly the difference was UP. I had another 30 seats from UP and the picture looks very different. Your thoughts on what happened in UP, and did anyone see that coming? Or should we have seen that coming?
Hey, before just say who's on the call today or who's on the podcast today, so everyone, our listeners know who's here.
Right. Oh, right. So hi, This is Manish Taneja. I have with me Dr. Omar Ali. We've got Gaurav Lele. We've got Mukunda Raghavan. We've got Shrikant Krishnamachari. We've got Akshar, and we've got KJ. We all regularly write and contribute on the Brown Pundits blog. If you followed us, if you followed the Brown Pundits podcast channel for a while, you would have heard all of us. And so thank you, Mukunda. Thank you for bringing that up. We've got Mukunda Raghavan also on the call. So yeah.
So coming to, before Shrikant tells us about UP, I just wanted to sort of highlight that when KJ gave the summary of the election result, it is obvious that the BJP suffered a setback and suffered a major setback compared to their own expectations. But the setback also is surprisingly sort of patchy. They suffered terribly in UP. They lost Haryana and Maharashtra, which they probably there's some details there that other people will shed light on. I have no idea. But this is not replicated everywhere, right? They swept Madhya Pradesh. Somebody should talk about that too. How come they got all 29 seats there?
Sure, we'll talk about that, Umar Saab.
Yeah, so let's start with Shrikant.
Shrikant, your thoughts on what happened in UP and how did everybody miss, or did actually everybody miss? Perhaps somebody saw that coming.
Right. Yeah, I think before we get to UP, there's another way in which we can think about this election. Because if you look at the previous two elections, right, 2014 and 2019, there was this narrative in the media that Indian general elections are getting increasingly presidential, right? It's, I think both, if you think of both 2014 and 2019, it was almost like Modi stacked up against Rahul Gandhi, right? And that was no contest, basically, right? But if you look at this election, it has been anything but presidential, right? So it reminds us that India is still a quote-unquote parliamentary democracy where you have 543 constituencies and 543 distinct elections, each unique in its own way, right? And because of which we get this confused verdict, which we've been used to growing up, right? Because when I was growing up in the 80s and the 90s and 2000s, we were used to coalition governments, and the last 10 years have been a bit of an aberration. Now we are back to the coalition era, right? As one would expect in a parliamentary democracy, right? So that's one way in which we can think about this election at a macro level. But as far as the states are concerned, yes, of course, I think UP was the big factor this time around, where I think BJP lost, I think 30 seats, right? Down from 62 to 33. So that's 29 seat loss. Right. And I think there were multiple factors at work in UP, which some of which have definitely impacted the performance in other states as well. I think the biggest factor is perhaps the consolidation of the Dalit and Muslim vote in a tactical way to defeat BJP, right? Which didn't really happen in 2019. Nor in 2014, right? Because in 2019, we had the famous, we had the much talked about Mahagathbandhan between two parties which were usually antagonistic to each other, right? The Samajwadi Party and Bahujan Samaj Party. They got together in 2019. And back then, I had done some math in terms of how that Mahagathbandhan would work. So assuming 2014 vote shares in 2019, I had projected that if there was perfect vote transfer from BSP to SP and from SP to BSP, BJP should not have won more than 35 seats in 2019. And yet they won 62 seats in 2019, which suggested that the SP-BSP alliance didn't really work back then, right? The vote share was far from perfect. And BJP actually got, I think, over 62% of the votes in 2019, right? This time, I think their vote share has gone down to 53.
No. It was 49 and it has gone down to 41.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. So no, I think I was thinking about one of the seats, Varanasi. Sorry, I got confused. Yeah. So yeah, 49 to 41. You're right. So there's been an 8% swing away from BJP this time, right? And one takeaway is that this time around, the alliance of SP with INC, with Congress, worked a lot better than the SP-BSP alliance worked last time. And I think we can reflect on the reasons why the SP-INC alliance was a lot more effective. One reason being the collapse of the BSP, right? The BSP vote share was, I think, 18 or 19% last time, and this time it's around 9%. So there's been a huge decline in the BSP vote share. And the BSP is traditionally the Dalit party of UP, right? And a lot of the Dalit vote has moved either to SP or INC, depending on the constituency, right? And you see this being played out even in the Prime Minister's own constituency in Varanasi, right? Where the margin of victory for the Prime Minister went down from about 450,000 votes to 150,000 votes. So it was a drastic drop. And it's not necessarily because Modi got fewer votes, I mean, which he did. He got about 60, 70,000 fewer votes than last time. But the main reason for the margin getting narrowed so much is that the opposition votes consolidated this time around, which didn't happen last time, right? And that had a lot to do with the Dalit vote moving tactically to the INC candidate in Varanasi, right? Everybody got behind the INC candidate. And as a result, the margin looked a lot narrower than what it did last time, even though Modi still got around 600,000 votes, which he did last time as well. So clearly the opposition votes consolidated. And why did that happen? I think it had a lot to do with the campaigning and the build up to the election. I think there was this slogan at the start of the election that Ab ki baar 400 par, right? And that's been the slogan, I think, since March, or since early this year. But that obviously begged the question, why is the BJP so desperate for 400 plus, right? What's the big deal about 400? And that's when I think the opposition cleverly managed to create this narrative that the reason BJP wants this super majority is because they want to amend the constitution. And why is that important? Because amending the constitution means that you can potentially get rid of the safeguards for the disadvantaged communities, SCs and STs, right? So that was the narrative which was cleverly laid out by, I think, by the opposition, and also promoted using unscrupulous means like creating deep fake videos of Amit Shah talking about scrapping reservations, which he never did, right? So all of this, I think, must have struck a chord early on in the campaign. And I think BJP sensed that something was terribly wrong in the first phase. And that's when I think Modi upped the ante and he became very aggressive from phase 2 onwards in his campaigning as in an effort to stem the tide, so to speak. But I think it was perhaps a bit too late by then. The word had gone out that BJP is out to amend the constitution, right? That may have been one of the macro factors in UP, right? Which probably impacted the whole state. I'm sure there are many local factors like choice of candidates and all of that, right?
The guarantee cards, Srikanth, we just want to add it. The guarantee card by Congress of that, all the women will get 1 lakh per year.
That's there as well. But I think the biggest factor is perhaps the desertion of the Dalit vote. I wouldn't call it desertion because BJP has never really been a Dalit party as such. I mean, they do get a good number of Dalit votes, but they've never really commanded the Dalit vote as such in UP, right? But I think what happened this time was that the Dalits tactically voted. So it's not like they were voting for BJP in 2019, but maybe last time a lot of their votes went to BSP, some went to INC, but this time it all consolidated behind the candidate most likely to defeat BJP in each constituency, right? And you see that happening in a lot of constituencies. Clearly happened in Varanasi. You can see that in the data, right? And that likely explains why the performance was as poor as it was. And I'm sure that there were other factors as well. I think like for the army recruitment reform that the Modi government pushed in 2021, 2022, the Agnipath reform, right? Which may have alienated a lot of army hopefuls in the younger segment of the population, right? So, I mean, I'm sure there are other minor factors like, I mean, for instance, a lot of old temples have been demolished in Kashi in an effort to modernize the town, right? And some of these efforts may have antagonized the upper caste vote as well, right? So all of these little factors have come together with one big factor being the tactical voting or by Dalits and Muslims, right? I think it all added up and BJP ended up with a very suboptimal result.
Yeah, and just adding a couple of points to what Srikanth said. So even though BJP never got a majority of Dalit vote in any of the states, I would have to say, so majority is 50%. According to CSDS data, they still got 30 to 32% of the Dalit vote, which is not insignificant, especially in states like Uttar Pradesh, where the population is significantly high. So I don't know, but it must be, I think, more than 10% for sure, 10 to 20% if you combine various subcategories of Dalits. So in that larger base, even a shift from, let's say, 30 to 20 or 30 to 15 is significant in closed seats. So that is point number one. Point number two, that no one has raised till now is till Modi started the uh, polarizing campaign against Muslims in the after the phase one, we had a remarkably unpolarized election. So run up to the election, none of the Hindu Muslim topics were in vogue. So I also think that the message for a lot of Muslim polarization also went through the constitution is in danger path, because that also
Yeah.
means that the more practical or more possible interpretation of constitution is danger is also Hindu Rashtra is coming, uh,
Hmm.
which is more easy to believe than cutting off reservations. I know all these deep fakes and all those things were added up, but a lot of BJP candidates and BJP leaders were making offhand statements about constitution in danger, about removing not removing reservations per se, but changing constitution. Uh, I had
Yeah.
I have talked with many BJP supporters, and I don't know why this miscommunication or misunderstanding crept in, but many were saying we need 400 for UCC or we need 400 for making Hindu Rashtra. So that was common among the hardcore BJP supporters. And the way a typical uh, middle class person mouths off his political views in public spaces or in front of others who are a bit reserved may also have played a role to this in this narrative, especially in states like Maharashtra, where you assume that like there is considerable middle class vote bank. And from what I have been speaking to people, many people among them thought that 400 plus is also needed for change in constitution. So it is not just the anti BJP voters who thought it, but pro BJP voters also thought it in significant proportion, which may have played a role which we cannot gauge in the polarization, because the way uh, loudmouth BJP supporters, like not political but non-political supporters, also keep on arguing these things or speaking in public, there is bound to be a counter polarization narrative. So removing reservation is a common pet theme of lot of upper caste middle class voters, which is talked about in offices, schools, colleges,
Yeah.
buses. You hear it everywhere.
So,
So,
on this point, I got a couple of questions, and maybe you guys have some clarity here. So, I mean, we see this across right, where you find people constantly talking about reservation policy and shifting the dynamics. Or in fact, actually, I think Akshar and on their podcast, which is interesting. And I'm sure that's an element of here. How do you guys think at least in UP, the Rama Janmabhoomi, did it help or hurt the BJP in its ultimate days of election?
Right. And before Shrikant or Akshar or Gaurav take that, Gaurav, just one point. You said the polarization really kicked in after Modi started making those speeches about Hindu Muslim. I think before that polarization had started, but this time it was caste-based polarization. I think the way Mr. Gandhi, Rahul Gandhi, hammered the idea that OBCs are not there in the army, OBCs are not there in media, OBCs are not there in Dalits, and OBCs are not there in judiciary. So there was polarization. There was a serious polarization. It was just that the polarization was driven
Right.
on caste lines.
no, Manish, my point was different. My point was this was a very unpolarized election right up till Modi upped the ante. So that doesn't explain Muslim polarization to the extent it was this time. So one can say that because it was third term, there was more Muslim polarization. I'm not saying Modi's comments made it polarized, made the election polarized. I'm saying constitution in danger narrative would have also stuck with Muslims as much as it stuck with Dalits, is my point. Not that Modi is upping the anti-polarize the narrative further.
Sure.
I
Anybody would
think-
like to take Mukunda's question? Srikanth, yes, please go ahead.
Yeah, just to finish on Gaurav's point, I think Modi's rhetoric starting phase 2 campaigning was, I think it was a defensive reaction to what he was sensing on the ground, right? I think they had picked up the fact that things are not going well in UP, and Rahul Gandhi's messaging is working well with Dalits and OBCs, right? And there is all this talk around constitution as well, right? And that's when I think they pressed a panic button and they had to do something about it. And he thought, okay, by bringing up the Mangal Sutra angle, right, he can reverse the tide or at least stem the tide. And that didn't really happen. To Mukunda's point on Rama Janmabhoomi is, of course, super important for a lot of us, right? For most Hindus. But I don't think it really created too many incremental votes for the BJP, right? So whoever is in favor of Rama Janmabhoomi was probably voting BJP already anyway, right? So I don't think it caused people to change their mind or switch their vote from, say, Samajwadi Party to BJP, right? I doubt that. Or maybe it might have helped with the turnout.
Well, I mean, it might have. I mean, Srikanth, to that point, do you think there might have been a chilling effect because of the Rama Janmabhoomi? Maybe people felt, some people, maybe sizable people, that we've gotten this, so we should be happy, and now we can think about the other concerns about.
Hello?
Also, we have to say that the Ram Janmabhoomi thing peaked too early. So it peaked in mid-January, and many places did not vote for 4 months. And when you have Indian summer and the summer we had this year, I was sort of thinking that people are going to come to real issues, because the euphoria and the whole mahol build up in January, it was almost more than 3 months in many constituencies. I am not saying it would have been definitely better, but if they had to get the benefit, the elections should have been maybe started a month or two early.
I have a couple of
that makes
questions.
you wonder. Do you think Modi should have dissolved the parliament in February, right? And
I was thinking, I was surprised by two things actually. I was expecting after him to dissolve the parliament right after Ram Janmabhoomi and proceed with elections. I was also expecting a fiscal freebie package in the budget. And many of us were pointing out that the fiscal health India has at this point has never been healthy. So there was significant space in the fiscal area to go on with a good freebies package. Because if you see what has been winning elections last 2 years, you may like it or you may not like it, but that is the reality. And if you have to win such a big election, especially in the time when people are struggling to meet their ends with massive unemployment, I was extremely surprised that Modi did not go in with any kind of freebies. So I was just talking to a friend of mine on Twitter. So according to him, there was enough enough fiscal space to accommodate up to 1,000 per month for all the unemployed youth under age of 30. That kind of thing, and it wouldn't have really caused a dent to the budget. But they didn't even bother to lower the LPG cylinder price. So last election, one of the big factors was Ujjwala Yojana. But we have been seeing reports now for 2-3 years that people have got their cylinder pipe connection, but they cannot afford a 1,200 rupee cylinder. But I don't know were they very confident or Modi stuck to his ideals. I don't know, but I was surprised by both these two things right in January, February.
Right, that's an interesting point. But before we move on, Akshar, your thoughts on what happened in UP? You traveled to India before the elections, and you've been doing a lot of work through your podcast and your videos on this whole caste arithmetic in India. So your thoughts, Akshar, what happened in UP and how do you read this?
Yeah, Srikanth covered most of it. The caste arithmetic was very ferocious for sure. It was it consolidated almost perfectly. I think one thing I have heard, and this is where we go into the rumor territory, but there is like chatter about certain rivalries within the BJP. Yogi versus, some say it's directly against Shah, some say it's his lieutenant, this guy named, I think, Sunil Bansal, or Bansal. I think he's another guy in UP who's in charge. There's some candidate tussles in terms of who should be at the seat. But I think that's mostly towards rumors. I more so agree with Srikanth about this this caste arithmetic just perfectly aligning, especially because of those deep fakes and just in general the 400 bar rhetoric and then successful Congress messaging with regards to reservation. One stat I saw that's really interesting, and I think UP is very good to contrast it with MP, because you'd expect possibly similar results in MP or a lot of these other, or you kind of see it similarly in Rajasthan. You don't see it similarly in, Chhattisgarh. These Hindi-speaking states, they all have different permutations, which is crazy. You don't really expect that. So go ahead, Gaurav.
Yeah. So one thing is, MP has been the original Sanghgad. The birth of Sangh happened in eastern Maharashtra, but it is in MP that the Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh and Jana Sangh grew. So that is the original homeland of Hindutva in India, not Uttar Pradesh. So that is a factor where you can separate between MP and UP. Apart from that, many people are saying that the Congress machinery in MP and in Gujarat is almost non-existent. And add to that, this is where the freebies come in. Shivraj Singh Chauhan won the election last year with a massive majority, and he gave 1.1250 per month as a freebie to most of under poverty, most of low income women, Ladli Behna scheme, which was seen as one of the many reasons. So it may be the case that freebies worked over there. I mean, we cannot make large predictions, but that is one part.
See, the
And
larger,
yeah.
The larger theme, I guess, Gaurav, is, see, I think these are all stats I agree with. I don't have any difference of opinion, but the larger theme, I think, is the sheer arrogance of BJP Modi, that I think Srikanth hinted to it, saying that both the elections till now were presidential, right? They were doing the third time. It was almost like a super president, Modi ka guarantee, and it basically a lot of MP candidates, about 25% of BJP candidates were essentially turncoats. I mean, for example, the most corrupt candidate in the Maharashtra came over, and then he sort of, takes a dip in the BJP Ganga and he becomes pure, right? So
not just a corrupt candidate, a candidate who shared stage with Digvijay Singh in RSS's Sajish as 2611. So that was a candidate who was given ticket in Jaunpur or some constituency in Uttar Pradesh.
So fair point. So that it sort of also answers a bit about Omar Saab's first question, right? So what's so different about? I mean, of course there is gross unemployment, there is rural youth dissatisfaction and all those things, but those things probably exist more in MP as much, if not more in MP than in UP. But then what you seem to have in MP, apart from the factors that you touched upon, Gaurav, is that there is a Mamaji, Shivraj Chauhan, who's a humble leader who has his pulse on the ground, and he pretty much seemed to have his way in terms of selection of candidates or whatever. And then again, I think both Akshar and Srikanth hinted it, the sense that Yogi apparently didn't have his way. So ultimately, elections are also fought by a lot of hard work on the ground, with a certain leadership which has its sort of ear close to the ground. That didn't seem to happen in certain cases. It was run like a presidential thing. The whole arrogance about, ultimately Modi is the candidate standing in all the 542 elections and people will vote for him. Sorry, that doesn't seem to work in India, in at least in quite a few states. And even in the states where it seemed to work, which is basically, Madhya Pradesh, there was actually an effective leader. Probably the only state where this work was in Gujarat, which anyways, sort of Modi's homegrown, so to speak, right? So the overall mood in which BJP came into the election, at least the BJP's leadership, was a bit of arrogance and we will win this. And then they suddenly figured out in phase one that, the ground was slipping away under them, and then they threw everything in the book, done, so to speak, right? The whole consolidation and all. So by the time they caught it out, it was a bit too late, but I still think they probably fought enough or caught the trend early enough to sort of get to where they are. But the mood is something which is there.
Right. I have a couple of just anecdotal sort of comments. When earlier Shrikant was talking about the consolidation and Gaurav mentioned that it was not a polarized election, so a Muslim consolidation maybe happened later. But I don't think it happened later. I think people may be underestimating the role of social media also. That there is, I have a sort of a vague theory that the BJP had the advantage of finding it first, and they thought it's sort of their home ground and nobody else will ever find it. But that's not the case. Other people figured it out by now. Maybe American help was involved, but they figured it out. And even though in public there was not a lot of polarization before April, there was not a lot of polarized, like public speaking. Within the Muslim community, the WhatsApp forwards had already decided that this is like almost a make or break election, because the feeling that with the whole Ram Mandir and the intense sort of projection of Modi as some kind of emperor of, Chakravarti emperor, this whole thing had already caused them to feel like they have to consolidate much more than they have ever done in the past. So I think that the visible polarization maybe only happened when Modi stepped in, but it was already decided on the Muslim side. The other thought I had was, this is completely anecdotal, but I've met a couple of Indians or heard from a couple of Indians that the Ram Mandir thing, they are supporters of Ram Mandir, but they are also very keen on making this a non-political thing. They feel, as sort of mild BJP supporters even, they feel that the BJP owning this is not right. This is a religious thing. We are all Hindus. Something like that. I have heard this from two people. So I don't know if any of you has ever heard this.
So I think it makes sense, actually. At least a lot of us from the south are like that. I think remember Robert and I discussed. Sure, I probably
one of them is a southerner. So yes.
No, I'm probably the only guy who visited Ram Mandir much before the thing was there. I'm very happy about it, but it won't change my voting behavior even iota, frank. So I agree comprehensively on that.
So Shrikant, your thoughts?
Yeah, I just wanted to answer Akshar's question on how MP was different from UP. So why is it that this Dalit consolidation, Muslim consolidation hurt them in UP, but not in MP? It didn't hurt them in Gujarat, of course, right? I think one thing we need to remember is that Madhya Pradesh politics is bipolar, right? It's BJP versus INC, and that's how it is even in Gujarat and Rajasthan, right? Whereas UP has never been bipolar. Traditionally, it's been a multipolar fight, right? It's a four-way fight. Just about every election, it's BJP versus SP versus BSP, with INC being a distant fourth player, right? So that's how UP politics works. With the bipolar polity, what happens is your ceiling is much higher. In the sense, if you look at 2019 election, BJP's vote share was 59%. In MP, 58% in MP, I think, right? And this time it was 59%, right? So the ceiling is much higher. And even if you get hurt, you're not going to go below 50. You're going to win that seat anyway, because it's just you versus the person from Congress, right? And whereas if you look at UP, even in their best performance in 2019, right, when their vote share peaked at 49%, as Gaurav corrected me earlier in the call, that's the max your vote share can reach in UP, right? You have a ceiling of about 48, 49%, because it's a four-way fight. It's a lot more competitive politically. There's a Yadav party, there's a Dalit party, right? And there's Congress, of course, which is still strong in some parts of UP, like say Amethi or Rai Bareli, right? So we are talking about a lower ceiling for BJP. It's a multipolar fight. And in a multipolar fight, if a couple of communities decide to consolidate, then that really hurts you, right? It doesn't quite hurt you the same way in a bipolar fight in, say, Gujarat or MP.
So more than Gujarat or MP, I think it is true for Uttarakhand and Himachal, where BJP was around 65% voting, 65%, and they have gone down to 54, 55, but they have still won all the seats comfortably.
Exactly. Yeah, because in a bipolar fight, if you're crossing 50, there's no way you can lose the seat.
Yeah,
right?
but even in Gujarat, BJP has lost one seat.
Hold on, but Shrikant, in Madhya Pradesh, did BJP's vote share increase or decrease or remain the same?
It increased.
I think it increased
1%.
marginally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It means they're doing something right? In the
Yes.
sense that UP and MP can't be that different. So, which means some of the other points, like I said, of having a, I don't know, the Shivraj Singh factor, some of the local leadership factors does seem to have a role here.
That's true. Yeah.
So just a couple of points on what KJ said. Now, the fact that it may look like that Amit Shah and Mr. Modi were projecting this image of that we are going to sweep this election, and there was this impression created that this is an unstoppable machine. But if you look at what they did pre-elections, the fact that they reached out to Nitish Kumar, the fact that they tied up an alliance with Chandrababu Naidu, tells you somewhere there was a sense that this will not be a cakewalk. Now, one can argue, no, this was the whole plan, that the idea to get them along was to push everybody to 350, 400 beyond. Somehow, I am not one of those guys who believes that. I think they had a sense that something was amiss long before that. They didn't see UP coming. That's my view. But they still thought there was something amiss, and that's why they went out and stitched up alliances with Nitish Kumar and CBN. As to MP and UP, I think MP and UP are two very, very different places. As somebody who's brought up in Bhopal, I can assure you MP in a lot of ways is nothing like UP. UP's got 3,000 years of blood feuds. It's the state which is the cradle of the idea of Pakistan. It's the most complicated, complex place possibly on the planet. So let's not draw too much from what happened in MP with UP. I think MP, the fact that it's a bipolar contest, the fact that BJP's on-ground game is very strong, that Mr. Modi was very popular, and what Mr. Shivraj Singh Chauhan did on the ground. Remember, he won his own personal seat by something like a margin of over 800,000 votes, which is more than combined of what Mr. Shah and Mr. Modi won. So
Shah won by 10 lakh, but Modi, but 8 lakh happens to be the amount required for BJP to cross majority. So had they got those 8 lakh in 40 constituencies, they would have crossed 280. So that is
right.
That was the picture. Just one thing to add here about Uttar Pradesh. Uttar Pradesh 2014, no one expected BJP to win 73. Uttar Pradesh 2019, no one gave them a chance to cross 50. This time, no one was thinking they will go below 50. So every time Uttar Pradesh has surprised us. So it is at least consistently.
Right. And here's one tidbit regarding Uttar Pradesh, right? I think if memory serves me right, BJP vote share in 2014 in Uttar Pradesh was, I think, around 41-42%. They got 72 seats. 2019, it went up to 49%. But because of the alliance, Mahagathbandhan, they got only 62 seats. And this time they're back to 41-42. And they're getting 33 seats. Right. So the vote share in UP for BJP today is the same as what it was in 2014. In 2014, the same vote share fetched them 72 seats. This time it is fetching them 33 seats. Yeah. That's shocking, really. Right? With the same vote share, 10 years ago they got 72. This year they're getting 33. It's all got it has everything to do with opposition consolidation.
Yeah, so just one point there, maybe comparing UP and MP is not fair, but comparing UP and Bihar makes more sense. So the Nitish Kumar and Chirag Paswan factor, where you have two leaders who sort of have consolidated the middle castes and the Dalit castes, gives BJP and NDA a buffer in Bihar, which it doesn't have in Uttar Pradesh. So the Constitution Khatre Mein Hai narrative would not have worked as much in Bihar with a Dalit face and with Nitish Kumar's face. So even though Nitish Kumar has been lampooned right, left and center for being a Paltuveer, he has still come through in this election. He has got 12 seats when no one was expecting him. So let's not discount his Paltuness, and let's maybe appreciate his political instincts and his vote base.
Right, but I think even in Bihar, NDA lost about 8 to 10 seats this time compared to last time, right? Because in 2019 they swept Bihar, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah, but that's what he's saying, that the alliance has buffered the anti-narrative. It makes sense. It makes sense. Yeah.
Anybody wants to talk about Bengal? What happened in Bengal?
No one knows. No one knows.
Bengal, I think it's I have a very simplistic explanation, right? The whole thing about we will win and then using ED and all the agencies as a means of attack. I think the average common man has sort of got a bit irritated. And even though, I don't know, BJP and Shah and ED may be sending corrupt persons to jail or whatever, I think everyone is getting irritated. The whole fact of sending Kejriwal into jail. I know you're not a major fan of Kejriwal, Manish, but then the point is, let the courts convict someone, right? You put all your enemies in jail, fair enough, but not exactly a banana republic. Who is the leader who has been convicted in the last 10 years?
This
So I
is
think
the reason.
Interesting
Yeah,
you say
yeah.
that. Gaurav, I'll just come in here. Interesting
Yeah.
you say that, KJ, because Bengal's the only place where the top leader and the family members, there was nothing done about ED. And just to sort of give you another data point, a Gujarati went all the way to Bengal and won an election from a seat which has traditionally been a strong Congress stronghold. So maybe there is something to do with demographics, and we can come to that. But this simplistic idea that Bengal was lost because BJP was unleashing ED, I think Bengal is one of those few states where the big leaders and their family members, ED was not unleashed on. But we can come to that. Any other thoughts on?
Yeah, on yeah.
No,
So
nothing. Carry on.
So on Bengal, there's another way to look at it. People might now start wondering if BJP's emergence in Bengal in the late 2010s, most notably in the 2019 election, right, when they won, I think, 18 seats or thereabouts, was it an aberration? Because if people get a sense that BJP is not going to defeat TMC anyway, right?
Yeah,
They
exactly.
will
Yeah, that's my
the
own phone. That's not my phone.
sorry, will the Hindu vote desert BJP now? Because people are losing faith in the fact that BJP will ever trounce TMC, right? And will that Hindu vote go back to the left, right? So will CPM make a comeback in Bengal, right? Does anybody think that way, or is CPM gone for good? Because if people
We have
sense that
like
BJP is never going to defeat TMC, because I don't think they didn't defeat TMC in the assembly election either, right? Which was held, I think, 2 years ago, if I'm not wrong. I forget when it was held.
yeah. But
So,
still, I would guess it would not be so much because BJP has developed a lot of goodwill on the ground. So like getting 40%, around 38% vote share in Bengal is no mean feat. So I don't think it will swing after 2 elections. But yeah, eventually, yes. But we don't know what the ground situation on Bengal is actually. None of us know. So
It's
all the
also a heavy
pollsters got
minority.
Bengal
It's all,
very, very wrong.
yeah. It's also, I think, rather your original theory of the whole minority consolidation is almost like happens 100% there, and a lot of Bengali pride. And I think Bengal again operates on a bit of a mood thing. And again, BJP's the earlier assembly election, I think, Srikanth, I think that's an important point in the sense that they made such a hype about they are going to win Bengal last time based on the previous 2019 Lok Sabha results, and fell so flat that I think the overall Hindus or overall Bengali populace may probably think that there is no way these fellows are going to beat BJP and probably resort to whoever they thought will win in their respective constituency sort of thing, right? I think the sense I'm hearing is that again it's a bit of arrogance. Then again the local factor, Shuvendhu Adhikari compared to the original dyed in the wool RSS BJP thing, again having an import from TMC as the leader and putting all the bets on him also seem to have played its part.
Yeah,
So again, Bengal, like UP, is a complex thing. You once you dice it, it's a bit of a mood. Even though Manish may say that, I still think the Mahua Maitra episode and all those kind of things, they seem to pick up these so-called emotive issues which seem to have bombed flat. There is absolute minority state, lot of anti-consolidation, and sort of local. Somewhere I get a feeling that these elections are becoming much more federal in nature, and I'm extremely happy about it. So, which means that where there is a Shivraj Singh Chauhan, he seems to sweep the state. Where there is somebody like Shuvendhu Adhikari who seems to be still seem to be seen by many as a ex-PMC guy, they're not doing as well. So it's a combination of complex factors, I think. So which means BJP it's a work in progress. CPM, carry on.
No, just to add, Mamta also started an effective direct benefits transfer program 1.5 years ago.
True. Wherever, true. Very true, actually.
So that holds for Mamta and as well as Shivraj Singh Chauhan. And to a certain extent, Congress performance is in Karnataka is better than 2019. So, and they have started a direct cash transfer program in Karnataka as well. I mean, let's not see everything through economic lens, but it has to be a important lens in a poor country like India.
Shrikant, your thoughts?
Yeah, with respect to Karnataka, as Gaurav mentioned, I was in India recently, and I think the house help in our house, she's from a Lingayat family, right? They're traditionally BJP voters. But this time around, the women in the house decided to vote Congress, right? The men are still voting BJP. And the reason being Siddharamaya's Griha Lakshmi dole out, right? Which is giving, I think, a couple of few thousand rupees to the head woman of each household, right? So if you have an elderly woman in the house or a single woman, she gets a couple of thousand rupees every month or something like that, right? So that welfare scheme has caused the women in this Lingayat house, working class Lingayat house, to switch from BJP to Congress. The men are still ideological; they still vote BJP, right? I found this fascinating. I thought it worth mentioning.
Okay, I have a question for those in the US. Can I go ahead? Especially, I think Omar Saab hinted at it, right?
Yes, please.
Yeah. I think Omar Saab hinted at it. I'd like all of you, the folks there, to see whether to answer if you have heard anything. So one of the theories that's being floated around here, especially with regards to UP and even otherwise, is that Congress has got its social game brilliantly compared to the last 10 years or for the first time ever in the history. Now, it can be a very honest factor, like what Omar Saab said, that it's not that BJP is the only kid in town who knows how social media works or whatever. So Congress in their own wisdom could have caught up. But some of these deep fake videos, some of these very clearly targeted narratives, which shows that reservation going to go off, and then all those very specifically targeted narratives aimed at different substrata of the society, caste wise and economic stature wise, and all seems to have some serious backing behind, and that juxtaposes with another theory that Manish and I and Gaurav have been talking, which is our great Kejriwal, the change agent, suddenly seems to be missing. Right, he was the hyped one, and now post-elections and even towards the back end of the elections, he suddenly seemed to disappear and all those things. So the whole theory, working theory, the conspiracy theory is that the Western agencies, the CIA and the likes, have suddenly they have pumped in money, essentially big time money, into sort of cutting down Modi to size, whatever, so that India is in a much better negotiating position or whatever. And then, whilst Kejriwal was supposed to be originally heavily propped up by them, at some point of time, in their own wisdom, they decided that he's too unreliable or too much of a maverick to be under control, and decided to go with a more safer bet kind of a thing. Is it all wild conspiracy theory, or is there some truth in it, or could there be some truth?
I think that it's more wild conspiracy theory than truth, but it is not. I don't think that the American government had sort of a secret cell that made a very detailed plan and put in a significant amount of money, which was budgeted, which was brought from somewhere by the American government and used to carry out this influence operation in India. That's the vision that people have, color revolution or whatever. I don't think anything like that happened. I don't think anything like that can be done with India by America and without people finding out. It won't be just a conspiracy theory anymore. I think that there are institutions in America which are very anti-BJP, right? And which are themselves capable of doing a lot of things. There's the Open whatever Society Foundation, Soros, all these people. They genuinely feel that the BJP represents some sort of a fascist alternative, not part of the free world, and we need India as this big bulwark against China. But how would you be if you had a bulwark that is as fascist as your enemy? So they really feel that they have a job or a sort of a duty to try and bring a government in India which, quote unquote, shares their values, right? And so they are making some efforts. They do pump in money. They do have NGOs. And the other thing is that there is missionaries, right? Missionaries are not to be underestimated. They are a serious force, operate in the background because they are not part of the secular world. But they have significant resources, and they also put money into it. So I mean, there's groups in the US which probably played a role in the Indian election. But I don't think it was an American government operation as such. I think the American government also sympathizes with Congress for sure and wanted Rahul Gandhi to win. That they helped him in some way in that fashion, I assume they can, or they did. But what I mean is that it's not like this deep, dark color revolution conspiracy theory. I think
so just
that's
one
my
point
take.
on that about the missionary angle. So if you know, must have followed Kerala. In Kerala, there were two narratives sent out by the church. One was the love jihad narrative, and one was the Manipur narrative. So without the Manipur narrative, maybe BJP would have got a bigger chunk of Christian vote with just the love jihad narrative. I mean, this is just a theory, but one day after another, two factions in the church or different churches were propagating two propagandas. Two, I have to say, somewhat wild propagandas to influence their flock. And we know now that some, like at least a moderate number of Christians have voted for BJP this time round. But was that prevented by the Manipur narrative? We have to see.
But I think Omar Sab, I have a follow-up question for Omar Sab. So Omar Sab, just a clarification. When I said CAA, deep state, all in my mind, I all sort of club them all together, by the way, just so that you know, right? I suspect few of my countrymen as well, in terms of, Soros and missionary, we all think of them all as one together. But actually, how does that happen? In the sense that US government sort of turns a benign eye over what Soros does or missionary does, or how does it actually play on the ground? As in,
No, I mean, I'm not like I have some kind of inside information,
okay,
right?
fair enough. Yeah. I know.
But I think that they do, the US government, the current administration in particular, is very anti-BJP in the sense that the individuals themselves are anti, right? There's this thing that personnel or policy. Whatever their formal policy making decision may be, as individuals, they are generally people who are anti-BJP because they all buy into the same narrative. The narrative outside of India is, as you know, is completely and one-sided. Of course, they will say it's one-sided because the reality is one-sided, but whatever, you know that there is no way you can talk to a normal liberal person who is not like, who doesn't have ill intent towards India, who actually thinks of himself as a great goodwill ambassador for India. They will firmly believe that it will be in India's interest if BJP loses. So there is that individual thing going on, so that they do have this ideology is there, or this ideology has support in the US. But I don't think it was a government level decision to carry out an operation. An operation to me implies sort of more serious work.
Right.
So Omar
So
bhai,
I can give you some insight.
Yeah, carry on.
Go on, Akshar.
So I think it's a quote from Thucydides. It's the strong do what they can, the weak do what they must. And like when you see a state that's a total hegemon, pretty much, besides China, but America is a hegemon in the world, and we know cases in every single continent: South America, North America, Europe, Africa, obviously Asia, where America does interfere in other people's elections. Now, you want a pliant state, obviously. Modi is probably one of the most American-friendly administrations in Indian history, I think. Probably, literally the most.
Yes, for sure.
Rahul will definitely be a lot more. There's obviously points of contention, especially recently with the Russia-Ukraine war, and now with Biden coming in, some cultural stuff, blah, blah, blah. But my point is, like, the way government agencies operate, because I'm from DC, so I'm kind of clued into some of this. The way an agency operates is usually it operates in the realm of, clearances, and then it operates close to, say, contracting or subcontracting. So what Omar said, it's probably not like someone did a meeting in the Pentagon and we're like, we're putting a hit out on Modi, change algorithms here, make this deepfake video, blah, blah, blah. But there probably was, 1 or 2 degrees away, there was a connection, I'd say. I don't think it was like, some grand conspiracy, but there was an appendage of the American admin, which is like a blob. It's like it's not necessarily coherent, but there's definitely an appendage or an area in the blob that probably, why wouldn't they? Why would they not? They have all upside, no downside. What can India do back? At the end of the day, what can Modi do back when he's back and he wins? there's not much you could actually do. And that's just, the weak do what they must. So that's what I think.
No, I think it makes sense. I think both of you, I think it makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, I just to add to what Omar Saab said, in general, I agree that most American liberals are very antagonistic to BJP and Modi, and sometimes this extends to India itself, right? But I sense a change more recently, though, right? I mean, at least in the journalistic space, right? For instance, there's this very influential Twitter account, right? Noah Smith, who I think is an econ blogger and tweeter, right? He is very pro Modi and he does a lot of pro India stuff on his feed, right? And it is also received pretty well. So I do sense a change. I mean even for that matter,
yes, I agree. There is a change. I think it's because of the China factor. There are serious people in the US who can sort of count numbers and look at facts more objectively. And
Right.
they know that there is no future for the US as a superpower without India on its side. It's not going to happen. Otherwise, they lose all of Asia. So I think there are people who are therefore now looking at India in a very different light. There is a move to
Right.
they would never give India technology or help in the way they are doing now. So there is a whole of government effort to help India actually. I think that is going on in parallel with the fact that if there is an election, they would prefer that Modi lose that.
Yeah. Also, sometimes I wonder if Modi subliminally seeks Western approval, right?
Oh, he
And
does.
that
Yeah, he does.
sometimes
He
it
does.
influences his decisions. Like, for instance, he chose not to dissolve the parliament after the Ayodhya temple got built, right? I wonder why, right? I think he cares a lot for what the Western media has to say about him, right? He's very touchy that way. And even in his campaign, if you notice, to his credit, it must be said, he never said in any of his speeches that I built the Ram Mandir. I may be wrong here, right? I think all he said was the courts took the decision, right? It went through the courts, right? And the Ram Mandir got built, and it was not financed by the government, it was built by the trust, right? And I was just asked to inaugurate the temple. And the only context in which he used to bring up Ram Mandir in his campaigns was the Congress people weren't gracious enough to come to the Pran
He also
Pratishtha.
said that Congress and SP will bring it down couple of
Yeah.
times. So it's not that he
Exactly.
didn't, yeah.
Right, but
But he
I
didn't
don't
say
think
I
he
built
ever
it. Yeah.
said that he built Ram Mandir, right? He never said that, and nor did the BJP as a party, right? I don't think they said that either in their speeches. I
No,
might
no,
be wrong.
but one of their campaign slogans was "जो राम को लाए हैं हम उन्हें लाएंगे" in Uttar Pradesh, Madhya Pradesh, in North. So yeah, they did say it, but Modi maybe in his speeches did not. So
Right,
that is the
that's true.
I think Shree's main point is they could have leveraged it on a lot more. They did not. My theory for that is for them, it was a political tool, but for a lot of very senior BJP people and RSS people, it's also a spiritual quest. They actually believe that it's a civilizational duty they needed to do. So they didn't want to make too much out of it, but that's just my theory. But yes, Shree's broader point that the fact that the temple was constructed was not leveraged as one would have expected in the election.
Yeah.
I think in general, this is just an outsider observation that Modi has remarkable message discipline. He says ugly things if he wants to say ugly things. He doesn't do it off the cuff. And I think that if he didn't make this like his personal achievement in this way, he probably does have a belief about it that he doesn't want to do that. I don't know, maybe something like that.
No, you're right, Amar Saab. I mean, a lot of people like me who are a bit wary, I think that every move of his is extremely crafted and stage managed and acted, right? So, which now the supporters obviously would think it is great determination and preparation, whereas somebody like me would be more cynical about it. To give a very simple thing, post-election, when all the eve of the election, the evening of the election results were announced, right? The whole team met, and Modi never said Jai Shri Ram. He said only Jai Jagannath, basically because they once swept in Orissa, right? Now my father actually pointed it out. Quite a few pointed it out. Now the ones who are supporters may think that is great, listening to the ground and listening to the feedback and listening. Whereas I would think that I mean, Jagannath, Ram are all the same gods and different names, right? So you can't be even so targeted appeasement even towards the guard, right? So those things are up for discussion, basically, in terms of how you look at it.
Yeah, so just a couple of follow-up questions to Omar bhai. So one, we were talking about Rahul Gandhi and whether the West is supporting him implicitly. So one thing Rahul Gandhi made explicit in last visit to US was he said he would back India's move in Ukraine. So he would not sabotage it. And at that time, the anti-Ukraine hysteria was at its peak. So you have to give him credit for like backing the India line in that particular point. Number one. And number two, after it has been shown that BJP can lose elections, like if you see Uttar Pradesh, Bengal as different elections, BJP lost them. So will this improve the Western trust in Indian democracy now, Omar sir?
It should. It should. But unfortunately, I think there is bad faith involved here. These people who are constantly writing about the downfall of Indian democracy, the primary sources people, I think, are just are lying consciously. And so the conscious lying can still go on. That next election, they will again start the same drama if they think that there's a possibility their person may lose.
Yeah, I agree. There's no good faith.
Yeah.
1 or 2 days before the election, there was an article in the Washington Post about election fraud, like basically kind of hint,
Right.
hey, this might happen.
Right.
By the way,
No, they were clearly setting the stage. It was like professionally done, right? If I was
completely
put in charge
coordinated.
of if I was given this contract, you have to make the setup or the psychological sort of psyops situation should be made suitable for a anti-rigging campaign after the result comes out. These are all the things I would have done, right? They systematically planted stories, sort of did this self-referential feedback thing where you first put out a bad story, then refer to that story as evidence that something bad is happening. This was done in bad faith for sure. And if they can do it in bad faith one time, they can try it again too. People have short memories. 6 months later, it'll again be open season on whether India has real democracy or not.
I think that's a brilliant point, Omar Saab. The whole US professor, the Indian origin professor sitting in US, UK, they're writing these original articles about. I mean, the surprising thing is even after the election results are over, they were still writing that minorities weren't allowed to vote. Come on, give me a break. I mean, we had Srikanth telling all those numbers, right? Yeah.
But here's the thing too, right? A lot of this is there is a lot of playing around, gamifying here. Like literally 2 weeks ago, Donald Trump was just convicted in the U.S. by his political enemies in some sense. I don't support the guy, but at some level, there's some stuff going on there that does appear to be not on the up and up completely. But at the same point, while this entire Indian election's going on, these same Democrats and these liberals and progressive were like, Donald Trump, it sucks. We should be prosecuting him for everything. Not to say he shouldn't be, but like they failed to see that the same thing was maybe happening in India, whether you're talking about what's her name, Rana Ayub or BBC or all these other things where people might have actually broken the law and they're being subjected to the law. Suddenly you're calling them to be like, that they're suddenly being subjected to different standards. And I think fundamentally what the problem is the American viewpoint is fundamentally that if you're a quote unquote democracy, you must be secular. You must not have Hindu in front of it or Muslim in front of it or Christian in front of it. And this is mostly the liberal media. They don't get into, like, even when you look at the 3 days before the election results come out, John Oliver does his piece on India, his third piece in as many years. And this piece on India is about Modi election. Again, fascism, bring up Rama Janmabhoomi, not talking about the masjid that was existing before, and then talking about oppression of Muslims, not talking to a single Muslim in India. I think there's just a narrative on the red talk to the Anglophiles living everywhere in India. So that's just, sorry for my rant. I apologize.
No, that's fine. Fine. Shri, your thoughts on Orissa and also Andhra Pradesh?
Yeah, I think Orissa, this was an epoch-making election, right? It brought an end to the rule of Naveen Patnaik after 24 years. Is it right? 24 or 25 years. I think the second longest serving CM in Indian history, if I'm not wrong. And Odisha was, I guess, handed to BJP on a platter somewhat. I think Naveen Patnaik was on the decline. And Congress has declined pretty badly in Orissa for a while now. And even in the last election, BJP was the second largest party, right? I think they got 7 or 8 seats last time, if memory serves me right. And this time around, Naveen Patnaik is aging, right? He is unwell, and he doesn't have a good succession plan. And his touted successor was a bureaucrat with southern origins, right? Which obviously was not very popular with the Odisha public. So I think BJP got lucky in Orissa, right? They didn't have to do much, I think, to sweep the state, which they did, both in the assembly election and in the general election, right? Because given where Naveen Patnaik was, and given the local factors in Orissa, which were so very anti-BJD, so to speak, right? It's not a surprise that BJP got that incremental vote which they needed to make it a clean sweep, right? I'm not sure how others feel about it. I think they just got lucky in Orissa. And as far as AP is concerned, AP is interesting because I think when you look at AP politics right now, it is a microcosm of the national politics when it comes to ideology, right? So you have welfare versus development. I know these two words, they sound very similar, but they are kind of the opposite poles in the Indian discourse these days, right? So you have Jagan with his welfare, you have Chandrababu Naidu with his development. And in a way, it mirrors what's happening at the national level as well, right? The welfare of the the welfare promise of Rahul Gandhi versus the Vikas promise, the development promise of Narendra Modi, right? So dole outs versus building roads and dam and bridges, right? So I know I'm simplifying it way too much, but that's how I think of Andhra politics right now. It was very much about policy, public policy, right? And I think the fact that Naidu was arrested last year and eventually released, that was seen as vindictive on behalf of Jagan, and I think that tipped the scales in Naidu's favor. And but I don't think anybody anticipated the scale of victory. I think his assembly victory is massive. I think he got 150 out of 180 seats or something like that, right? Which is incredible. I think it's the biggest defeat for biggest win for any party in Andhra political history, right? And BJP also got some seats, both in the assembly and in the Lok Sabha. I think they got 3 or 4 seats in the Lok Sabha, right? But I don't think it's because of BJP per se. I think their vote share is very insignificant in Andhra on their own, right? Had they competed on their own, they would hardly get anything. They got those 3 or 4 seats because of the TDP alliance and TDP votes transferring neatly to BJP.
Pawan Kalyan as well, Shrikant. He must have played a significant role in consolidation.
Pawan Kalyan in coastal Andhra, not so much in Rayalaseema, but in coastal Andhra. But then I've spoken to some Andhra people in my, at the workplace, when they don't seem to think he's that big a factor. They think basically TDP votes are going to Pawan Kalyan and not the other way around. I don't know. I'm not from Andhra. So
yeah, but people are saying that he was the one who stitched together the coalition of NDA. Right. So people, yeah, especially the BJP supporters, have to thank him for if he actually did it.
No, he did. He was standing when Naidu was in jail, he was the only leader who had the guts to stand in front of the jail, wait for him 2 days to meet him, and then he met and promised him and did that. So that point is fair. And Shrikant's point is also not fair that he wasn't as much as a vote catcher as much as somebody who brought the alliance together. So he has his role to play. Yeah.
I think to build on this, I think the last 4 or 5 years we've really been witness to this phenomenon of Andhra Pradesh Telugu, right? Even in popular culture, the success of Bahubali 1 and 2 in Hindi, and then the success of RRR. I think the Vijayanagar Empire is asserting itself, right, Shri?
Yeah.
There
No
is
comments.
definitely a Telugu movement in America. There is like Telugu engineers everywhere I turn.
No, the
Yeah.
running joke I heard that 1/3 of Microsoft is from Andhra. I don't know how true that is.
It's probably true.
Right. KJ, your thoughts on Tamil Nadu?
Yeah, man. I mean, what do? I can have people have been asking for all the so-called non-BJP supporters have been pushing me post results to have a detailed one with Omar Saab. So Omar Saab, I need to have humble pie, and you can sort of grill me sometimes. But in summary, no, I think pretty much I thought 2 to 5. Even that didn't happen basically because at the end of the day, I think the DMK alliance was so strong, and I think I frankly think have to give credit to where credit is due, right? Stalin ran a brilliant campaign in the sense that, for example, communists in India, I don't think have won a seat. They probably have won a seat in Bengal. I'm not too sure. Other than that, I don't, or one in Kerala maybe, but I don't think communists have won any seat anywhere in India. In Tamil Nadu, they stood in 4. They won all 4 apart from the seat in Madurai, where there is a very brilliant popular author. The rest of 3 are absolute nobodies. They had no business winning. The Congress won, stood in 9, won all 9. Of the 9, all the 9 were 4 were deeply unpopular candidates who were standing for the 3rd or 4th time. They had no business winning. They won. The other 4 were complete newbies. They won. Basically, it is just that Stalin respected all the alliance partners. He had his regional satraps fight the election like it's their last election. Even the absolute deadweight candidates, he instructed that the regional heads and the regional satraps and district secretaries of DMK are it's an extremely cadre-based disciplined party. So he gave a diktat that if you're a MP under your constituency, even if he's a Congress and an MDMK MP, he needs to win. If they don't win, then you folks won't continue as secretaries or whatever, right? So that kind of a diktat he won. Credit to BJP and Annamalai, they ran a good campaign. They increased their vote share to double digit. BJP per se for the first time has crossed double digits in Tamil Nadu, 10-11%. Again, they may probably be weighed down by their sort of own expectations, wherein they went ahead and said that they will do 25% and 1, 2, 3 seats. But then I guess if you are in politics, you will need to do that. Otherwise, you can't say that I will only 10% and jump into an election. Right? Then why would anybody vote for them or whatever? So to that extent, yes, they probably knew that. It's disappointing, but what is also more interesting is that will Annamalai be actually continue to run, or they will make him a minister and then have a more pliable, because I get a sense that this polarization is not going to be reversed, as in while BJP will take corrective action and all, I think BJP seems to be an engine which takes 5 years, 10 years ahead, right? Which means that they can't afford to have these 39, 40. Pondicherry also, which they are expected to win, they didn't win, so it was 40 seats gone. They won't like to start off next election with opposition getting 40 on the scorecard right from day one, right? They will need to make an entrance. And the only way to do it is, again, align with ADMK. So already I have my father, my uncles, and a lot of elderly relatives sort of openly telling me that, we are not going to see an answer to the Dravidian party in our generation. Hopefully, you are slightly younger than us, and maybe you will see it, but I'm skeptical about that as well. So that's where sort of Tamil Nadu is. Yes, it's a bit disappointing, but the trajectory for BJP is fine, and I still believe they should go for it in terms of try to strike it alone. But practicalities of winning an election and staying in power in the next 5 years or whatever will deem that, I have a feeling they will end up going back to the old template that I was sort of hinting that I waxed eloquent in the last talk, right, on Tamil Nadu, which means that they will probably end up negotiating with ADMK or whatever. So that's sort of Tamil Nadu. Now, getting back at you, Manish.
Before we get that, Shrikant, your thoughts on Tamil Nadu? Shrikant, your thoughts on Tamil Nadu?
Yeah, just one additional comment. I think it was a very creditable performance by BJP in Tamil Nadu. It's a very, as KJ said, the vote share increase is very substantial. In 2014, that's when they fought it alone. I mean, they were in an alliance, but they did not align with ADMK in 2014. That's when they got 5.5% vote, and they opened their account back then. They won 1 seat, I think. This time their vote share is 11 and a bit, 11%, more than 11%. That's a doubling of vote share. In 2019,
but that 5.5 was a much lesser number of seats, so we'll need to be a bit fair there. It is an increase, but not like 5 to 11. That 5 was basically they hardly contested about much lesser number of seats that they did this time.
Oh, really? Okay, I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah.
But they have finished second this time in about 10 seats.
12. That is very good. 12. That is very good. Yeah.
12 seats, and surprisingly, even in Chennai, right? Chennai
South, my constituency, South Chennai. Yeah.
Yeah, South Chennai and Chennai Central, they are second, right? Which is great. I mean, they are ahead of ADMK in South Chennai, right? Comfortably. So obviously there has been some kind of a mini wave, so to speak, which has increased their vote share. Yeah, but it needs to be seen if they will align with ADMK. If Annamalai stays in TN, I don't think they will.
Yeah, but correct. We'll know that tomorrow, I guess, right? Yeah.
Right. KJ, you were
Punjab batao, Manish. Punjab batao, Manish.
Punjab. Okay, Punjab, I'm seriously worried. And to start off on a very different tangent, I think we should thank our stars where Pakistan is today, where it is. Otherwise, we would have a lot of trouble in Punjab. I think there is a clear vacuum there. People really don't want BJP. Aam Aadmi Party, I think Aam Aadmi Party is the inroads they were expected to make, they've obviously not made. So that, and the Akalis are a family-owned firm which has sort of declined. So now it was left to Congress to pick up whatever was left. But the fact that Amritpal Singh's won, and the fact that I don't remember the gentleman's name, the relative of, I think, son or the grandson of the gentleman who shot
Son
Indira
of Behant Singh. Something Khalsa.
He's also won. I think that's deeply troubling. I think the socio-economic trajectory of Punjab, the fact that it's an economic mess, the fact that there is absolutely, I mean, the sheer cynicism and disillusionment that people have for political parties in Punjab is scary. And it's not helped by the fact that we recently had this incident of a uniformed personnel slapping an elected parliamentarian. The one other thing that I see happening, I think by the time 2029 comes around, church will be an angle in Punjab. The Father Peter Sidhus of the world are really at it. So it'll be very interesting to see how that dynamic plays out. I think that's something that is not...
Manish, if I can interject, I heard conversion is absolutely rampant in Punjab. It's almost like
Yes, that's what I'm saying. Church will be a pole come 2029. I think it's...
So the Sardars are actually Christians, is it? That's why in the movies and all, you see all of them having Christian name. I thought it was like a Chinese having a Christian name just so that people are comfortable. I thought these Sardars. So you mean to say they're actual Christians, actually?
Yeah, there's massive conversion going on in Punjab.
I think what you are saying, KJ, is different. Punjab is like those Tony Pittu names. This conversion is very recent, I think. You wouldn't have seen its reflection in movies.
Relatively recent, and also I don't know if anybody has that information, but just anecdotally again, I asked someone here who a Sikh friend, and he was he at least claimed that the Jat Sikh community is not really converting out or something. It's more the migrants and Dalits and underclass
Mazhabi Sikh community, yeah.
Yeah. Right. So Punjab's been there's rampant casteism in Punjab. Let's not forget Kanchiram came from Punjab, right? So the
Punjab has 30% scheduled caste population, highest in the country. 28 or 29, yeah.
There you go, right? So the church will be a pole, but it is I am very, very worried about Punjab. Everybody keeps talking of, no, this is not the 80s and the 90s. But before 80s and the 90s, there were 70s, right?
No, there is definitely a crisis. You can see it. I have obviously never been to India, but here in California, you meet so many Sikhs. The Sikh community overseas is completely dominated by the Khalistanis. That's dominated means in the Gurdwaras and institutions, right? The individual people are not necessarily Khalistanis, but nobody who is anti-Khalistan would dare to go to any Sikh institution or Gurdwara. That's just, there would be a fight. They would dare. There are some anti-Khalistan Gurdwaras also, I've heard. But the thing is, it's a remarkable transformation. It's like a level of distrust and polarization that I had never expected or seen before. What will become of it, I don't know. But one other thing, though, is one way, other way of looking at it would be that it's such a vacuum right now, just from looking at it from outside in Punjab, that it's also possible that this will be, in another 5 years, completely unexpected things can happen. I mean, the trend doesn't have to go just one way.
Captain is too old, is it, Manish?
Yes,
Why
captain
is
is
he not
too
seen?
captain is too old, and
Okay.
captain is too old. No, but what Omar Saab says is that's an interesting possibility. We are expecting, at least I am expecting, things will get worse. For all you know, the tide may shift the other way, but looks very difficult right now. And this is where I come back to the point. I mean, if Pakistan was where it was in the late 80s, it would have been a happy hunting ground for them. So,
Oh, yeah.
in a
Yeah,
very
yeah.
dark
Just
way,
yeah,
it's very
just
dark.
one point to be made here. The only party which has been consistent and fair with the Punjabi, fair as in not trying to polarize Punjab to certain extent, is Congress. Because in this election, BJP has also tried to stoke some of the anti-Blue Star sentiments in few rallies, but Congress has not. So the Congress leadership in Punjab, for all their leadership chaos across the country, still have the sense on the pulse.
Right.
Same
Blue
cannot be
Star
said
India
about,
उन्होंने किया वो कहाँ तो करेंगे यार.
yeah.
I,
But
I, I think I think this is where I would like to sort of bring in another point and pick your thoughts that the BJP needs to make up its mind whether it's the Congress of the 60s, 70s, or is it the BJP that it has promoted itself as from the 80s and 90s. What do I mean by that? See, the idea that we have to, one of the takeaways from this election clearly is that no matter what you do, the Muslims will not vote for BJP, right? The fact in 10 years in a 303 seat BJP government, forget the rhetoric. On the ground, the minorities ministry continues to exist. The minorities educational institutions continue to be funded. Everything that a Congress government would have done in terms of what the BJP calls appeasing to the minorities, fundamentally at a policy level, nothing changed. So idea was, I mean, the reading I had was that BJP is trying to be the Congress of the 60s and 70s, that Sabka Vikas, we are with everybody. But clearly that's not resonated on the ground. This goes back to 1857. The fact is, and you may call me whatever you want to call me names, but the fact is, since 1857, there's been a clash of who's finally going to dominate the subcontinent. We've seen an outcome of that in 1947, and there is, at least to my mind now, very clear. I mean, there is absolute clarity that there is a primacy of an identity, Muslim identity, which looks like, in spite of everything that we may talk about, prevailed. The consolidation was very strong, like Omar Saab said in the beginning of the call. So on one hand, you continue to run the policies that you yourself called appeasement. But come election time, you bring up the idea of Mangal Sutra and Ghuspatiye. So get it clear in your mind. I mean, it's a great idea that you want everybody to come together and you want to seek out Pasmanda Muslim votes and you want to get Muslims on your side. That's a great idea. I mean, you want to do that. Even Nehru and Gandhi tried doing that. But then don't go down this road that come election time, you stoke up the rhetoric. Or you say, no, our fundamental idea is that we are a Hindu state and that we will build an identity where religion will not matter as to who you are. You are an Indian first and your religion comes second. So we will do away with this kind of subsidizing or promoting identity through policy, which is that you continue to fund an AMU or for that matter, St. Stephen's College and minority institutions, minority educational institutions. So you figure out. So BJP needs to, I would like to see, I don't know what they'll do. They're smarter people. They know pulse of the ground more than me. So, and this plays out in Punjab also. This RSS's idea that Sikhs are Keshdhari Hindus. I think I would like to see some clarity there, that you accept the fact that they don't see themselves as Keshdhari Hindus and you deal with it in that way. Then you figure that out. You figure out an arrangement basis that. The second thing I think we should also sort of take away from this election is that this idea that, I mean, if you lose Ayodhya in 2024, then maybe this whole idea that there is some kind of civilizational nation or an Indic renaissance, I think we need to relook at that. In that context, again, Punjab comes back that you need to figure out what is it that you want to do there. You can't be in your policy looking at people through a religious lens, promoting those religious identities, and come election time, then going back on rhetoric of no, this is a Hindu Rashtra and all that stuff. So just my thoughts. I'm happy to hear any pushback or anything.
I got a question for you. So, like, I've been reading, and you guys tell me, since you guys are on the ground, that part of the reason for this loss is the breakdown between the BJP and the RSS fundamentally across the country. Is there any truth to that?
No. My senses and the fact that Delhi, all 7 seats went to the BJP. I don't think there is a big divide in between RSS and BJP.
I have a slightly different point. I don't think there is a big divide, but there is resentment. So in Maharashtra particularly, taking in Ajit Pawar has not gone well with RSS. So
Sure.
some of the
But I don't
people,
think that discontent led to RSS not working on the ground. Let me just then say it that way. I think Mukunda.
I can only say from my constituency, all the canvassing was done by Ajit Pawar, none by BJP.
Okay, that didn't happen in Delhi. The fact that
because Delhi 7 seats were all given to Hindutva RSS people, as far as I can see. So
yeah, but Delhi, you still needed RSS to pitch in because
it was a bipolar contest. I'm not saying RSS.
No, his point is candidate, no, Manish. That's the thing that I'm hearing, right? Wherever the candidates were from the original BSS, BJP, RSS stock, RSS worked. Wherever the candidates were at opposition turned code, and that too, the corrupt one like an Ajit Pawar or whatever, RSS was obviously
and they may have worked, but they wouldn't have put their full mind, like full effort into it.
Maybe that's not the impression, Mukunda. So that's not the impression I have. My sense is BJP and RSS were in it together. I think this whole discussion would be very different, but for 30 seats in UP, which is what comes back to what I said on our 10th April podcast, that UP is very difficult to understand. What they pulled off in 2014, 17, 19, 22 was remarkable. It was just a matter of time before reverted to mean politics in UP. So, but Mukunda, no, that's not my impression. That's not my sense.
So I think we have to say a few words on Maharashtra, but we also have to start heading towards sort of wrapping it up. So who is going to talk about Maharashtra?
We'll have our original Punekar there. Gaurav.
Yeah. So the title of this podcast we have called Ashwamedh Interrupted. So if you want to look at it via that lens, it was interrupted in 2019. Where BJP, in all fairness, was trying to eat into the local parties. So ED, CBI, and all money, Sam Dam Dandvet, everything was on offer after the high of 2019 euphoria. So in 2019, NCP won 1 seat, Congress won 3 or 4, and NDA swept 42 out of 48 seats. And it was expected that NDA would do better in 2019 assembly elections. So BJP went across trying to poach candidates right, left, and center, even from their allied partner Shiv Sena, which did not go down well. And one funny thing I would like to point. I mean, this is all retrospective gyan. No one saw it coming. At that time in 2019, people saw it coming. So they apparently had given a notice to Sharad Pawar, who, at least in the popular perception, was semi-retired. I mean, he was not putting that effort into fighting the 2019 election. He was already 77, 78. But after he got the ED notice, he made a grand spectacle of it, went to the ED office or wherever he was to report with the entire NCP cadre. And that is where people thought the election turned. Then Uddhav Thackeray got significant amount of seats. Even then, the exit polls had predicted BJP to get a clean sweep, like around about 130. And some of the BJP spokesperson, when asked who is going to be the CM or who is going to be the deputy CM, said that we will see it after the results come in. So that was not taken well by Uddhav. I'm not defending what Uddhav Thackeray did, switching going against the popular mandate. But you have to see that it was the Ashwamedh kind of thing BJP were trying to do, which backfired in Maharashtra 2019. I had written a blog post on that in 2020, I think, on Brown Pandits. So that logic still holds. So when you have 3 opposition parties who have lot of conflict with each other, they stick together and run a government for 2.5 years. It is because you have tried to demolish all of them. So that is where the sort of overarching, overconfident narrative started to go wrong. Then they broke Shiv Sena and Eknath Shinde came in. And there was expectation that because Uddhav Thackeray, who was ill in 2020, 2021, he will not put up a fight and Shiv Sena would go to Eknath Shinde. But that did not happen. And there was a considerable backlash against BJP. Rather than learning from this backlash and having some humility, BJP chose to facilitate the breakdown of NCP and take in Ajit Pawar, who is not very popular among the BJP cadre and BJP base over here. And now they had like I think around more than 200 MLAs in the assembly, and the popular mandate is completely against them. So there was people have been saying even in UP there was no anger against BJP, but in Maharashtra there was extreme anger against BJP. We can say that from the fact that Congress has won 13 seats. Congress was not appearing in the fight, in the narrative. It was absent. It was all Uddhav Thackeray and Sharad Pawar against challenging BJP. But the simple fact that Congress has swept Vidarbha and Marathwada to an extent says that the voting was anti-BJP. It was anti-incumbent voting. And I have like many people in my peer group who had voted for BJP in some form 14, 19, who are saying that their entire families have voted against BJP. So one factor there is this narrative, and another and more important factor is the Maratha reservation Andolan, which has polarized the Maratha and OBC communities to us like to as much as it is possible without having actual violence. So people from Maratha and OBC community are not going to each other's restaurants, weddings. That is the scale polarization has taken place in Marathwada. So BJP by and large has been seen as a OBC party, OBC dominant party, not OBC party. So it is fair to say, fair to assume that the Maratha vote, which was 50% with BJP in 2019 elections, has completely deserted it. So there has been massive anti-incumbency against BJP. So yeah.
But Shinde hasn't done too badly, right, Gaurav?
That is the surprise. That is the surprise.
Why is that?
I mean, I can have retrospective reasons. Maybe
Batao?
the
Never stop.
so the anger was not against Shinde, it was against BJP. That is, and Shinde had people who were fighting on ground. So even in the seats Shinde has lost, like some in Mumbai and some in Kolhapur, they have lost close fights. Whereas when BJP has lost against Congress, like for example, they took Ashok Chavan from Nanded and they lost the seat by 2 lakh votes, which they had won by 1 lakh vote last time. So 3 lakh sweep, like swing, after taking in the most heavy Congress leader from that part, it's astounding. I mean, we cannot say why Eknath Shinde won. Maybe he had the Karyakarta or on ground, or BJP votes went to him. That may be the factor. But yeah, even in some of the Eknath and Uddhav fights, Eknath Shinde has won, which is surprising because Uddhav Thackeray would have got all the Muslim vote. And in this case, the Muslim and Dalit vote. But how Eknath Shinde has managed to win 7 out of 14 or 7 out of 15, whatever it is bits the imagination. Sharad Pawar, who was not getting candidates to fight at more than 4 or 5 places, has won 8 out of 10 seats. And something to flag here, we have been underplaying the democracy khatre mein hai narrative here on Brown Pandits, but there are some fault lines which were there. So let me come to that with this example. Sharad Pawar's party got the symbol of tutari, which is like a trumpet, and a man was blowing it. So that was the symbol. So on all the 8 or 9 constituencies where Sharad Pawar was in play, there were 2 or 3 people who were giving a tutari or a trumpet like symbol and who had names similar to the Sharad Pawar candidate. So I mean, EC cannot do anything about the name, but the symbol they should have been careful about not giving in 8 seats. And combined at average at all of these 8 or 9 seats, this trumpet guy has gotten 40,000 seats, 40,000 votes. And despite of that, Sharad Pawar has won all the seats. The seat in Satara, which he lost to the descendant of Shivaji Maharaj, Udayanaraje Bhosle, the trumpet guy has gotten 34,000 votes, and Sharad Pawar's candidate lost by 32,000 votes. So we can all say that everything was rosy and EC was all fine, but there were some things where people were seeing abuse of power, and they, especially in this fact, they did not like it. So Sharad Pawar spent so much money on conveying the message that his symbol is a man blowing a trumpet and not a trumpet itself. So that's all I was hearing for 15 days, like day in and day out. So I was also starting to sing their what do you say, their slogan, that it's this. So that much of drilling down had to be done, and despite all, like, stacking all odds against it, he has won. So that is something which is.
No, true.
And the
Hello?
only, like, global, and this is a vote against BJP, not necessarily for Shiv Sena or for Uddhav Thackeray, because had that been the case, Congress wouldn't have won.
Right, right. So before we wrap it up, let me ask each one of you, tell me one winner and one loser in this election. We'll start with you, Omar Saab from America. Who won and who lost this election?
I think it's the classic glass half full for everybody. Nobody actually won or lost the election. I think that overall, I tweeted this out actually, and it had got some interesting responses. That I think personally that the BJP suffering a slight setback would have been a good thing, but it suffered more of a setback than is ideal. I think 10, 15 seats more would have been better for India. So I'm not an Indian. I don't have a party preference or something. I'm not going to make any difference to me who is the prime minister. But I am sort of a Indophile who wants India to, as a state or as a country or as a civilization, to progress and grow. And I think there's a very narrow window of opportunity. And it's a very narrow window of opportunity that will not survive kind of this freebie mandal politics. That will just keep them in the third world for the next 50 years. They really need to move beyond that. And I don't think Modi is ideal. I don't think BJP is ideal. But I thought that they were doing a slightly better job than their opposition, or a better job than their opposition. And in this matter. And this matter is critical because without doing this, you have no other future. Then your future is Pakistan. So then who cares who is ruling? So that's one thing I would say. The
Yeah.
other conclusion is that I also think we all do this, that we are short term sort of, there is a difference between tactical matters and strategic matters, right? Somebody had raised, I think Manish, you had said about what the BJP has to figure out what it wants to do, or the RSS has to what it wants to do in Punjab. That I think to some extent they always have to ride in two boats. They can't be doing this. They can't figure it out to your satisfaction because these are necessarily sort of contradictory or paradoxical things that they are trying to achieve. So tactically, things will be different. There will be many things done, many compromises, many deals, and all. I can't say in detail about it.
Yeah.
Can you pick up like a bullet or?
Sorry. So I was saying that I think that there is going to be, they have survived, and their survival, it now depends on how many lessons they can learn. I think that they were overconfident, and they had also sort of imagined that somehow they have a lock on the social media thing, which nobody has a lock on social media thing. Everybody is going to join social media in the world, and everybody is going to use the same tactics. But that also means that they were surprised, or sort of they suffered a setback, but that again can change. The next time around, they will again be ahead or in that game. These are tactical things. They change. This is something that everybody sort of should keep in mind. That's
Right.
my last.
Right. Akshar, your thoughts. Who won, who lost this election?
I think it definitely is a big setback for Modi. He was getting ready to bear the fangs from what it sounded like early on in the election. And very lucky with those two alliances, Nitish Kumar and Naidu. I think they're the biggest winners here of this election. Rob reinvigorated. I think he's going to keep going with his. I think it's three main planks he has. It's the caste policy.
Akshar, we lost you there.
Is redistribution.
Akshar, we lost you there. If you could just repeat that.
going with his, which is caste politics, Jatitwa. He's been rewarded. I think that's the real danger here. Transplant of discussing Indian politics. They transplant, say, the or tussles in other countries onto India. When I look at the Congress Party, I see it as existential in a threat to India. And I don't mean from a cultural sense. You can make that argument, but right now the bigger issue is, I think, from an economic sense. It is very extreme. And I'm not like, I don't come from a necessarily like upper caste family. If I came from an upper caste family and I saw some of the rhetoric that was going on in some of these rallies, I would be really scared. I think it is like that's wrong to me, and that's very dangerous for
Yeah.
most
Right.
part.
Just to add there, Akshar. So as someone who comes from an upper caste family, I have I am on record saying that I would prefer a coalition governments with a slight just a narrow majority to any party, because I know anyone who gets more power is likely to abuse more power. One of the reasons I was not in favor of that sort of mandate this time was the economic policies of Congress and Jitni Abadi Utna Haq. So yeah, so that was an alarm bell for me.
Right. Shrikant, your views. Who won, who lost?
Yeah. So in terms of who won, I think it's what we will hopefully see as a result of this election is perhaps a more consensual approach to policy making and running the government, right? Less unilateralism, right? More consultation, because if you look at the Modi administration 1 and 2, now I'm obviously a fan of the Modi administration, but still, you can identify many policy steps which seemed very ill thought out, like for instance, demonetization is a good example, right? Or for that matter, in the way COVID was handled, which was you could debate on it, but some of the decisions one could argue are very unilateral, and there was not enough consultation. So hopefully it will temper some of the arrogance in some parts of the government at least, right? And hopefully it will also prompt the government to have a looser fiscal policy, right? To Gaurav's point, they had a pretty tight budget even this year, right? With not much relief for the middle class, right? Even in an election year, right? So, which is a little surprising, right? I think fiscal prudence is important, but I think the Modi government is overly fiscally conservative, right? So hopefully you'll see some shift there. As far as the losers are concerned, I think the biggest disappointment here is that we'll continue to see Indian politics organized around the clash between Hindutva on one hand and casteist parties on the other hand, right? So Jatitva versus Hindutva, to use the phrase that Akshar coined, right? That is unfortunate. In an ideal world, you would want the emergence of a mature polity in India where some kind of a soft Hindutva is a consensus across the board, right? And within that consensus, we will stop debating ideas of India, right? And there is a consensus on idea of India, the consensus being that India is a Hindu country, which nevertheless guarantees religious freedom to everybody. And within that consensus, you see a mature polity emerging, a left versus right polity emerging, right? So, so in an ideal world, the 2034 election would be fought between, say, two wings of the current BJP, one may be led by Fadnavis, another led by Yogi, right? That would be my wish, right? But I don't think that's happening anytime soon, right? Because Hindutva is far from becoming a consensus in Indian politics. And what we will continue to see is this clash between BJP as it stands today and all of these casteist formations. And that's not good for Indian politics, because what that results in is basically identity politics as opposed to politics of principle between say, left and right, right? That's unfortunate. And what this election is also telling us is that the Gandhi family's hold on the Congress is not going away, because I think this election will be interpreted as an endorsement of Rahul Gandhi's leadership, right? As a vindication of Rahul Gandhi's leadership. And basically, their sway on the Congress party continues for another decade, right? Because of this election outcome, which is not good for the Congress either, right? So at a broad level, I think this election is primarily a disappointment, I would say, for me.
Okay. Can I go, Manish?
Yes, please, KJ. Manish seems to be out. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So fair enough. So in my side, I think I'm actually pretty happy with the result. I mean, while I'm mildly disappointed with Tamil Nadu, I've sort of taken it in my stride, like, broadly, whatever Shrikant probably had the consoling words for me that, BJP hasn't done too bad. They leave it at that. Otherwise, I'm happy. For me, the winner of the election is the federal form of the Indian state. Right, basically, because even in our last 2 hours of discussion, we see that each state is a different animal by itself, and the reasons for anybody winning or losing is completely different. Now, BJP and Modi thought they could rule India like a kingdom, and Modi being the king, and Shah like a lieutenant. Right, that's not happened. That's never happened in the history of India. Even in its the greatest king, the Ashoka, the Chandragupta Maurya, the Rajaraja Cholas, hardly conquered or lorded over less than 50% of India's territory or whatever, right? So that is still continuing to go to happen, basically, because I think BJP, anybody who's going to win India is still going to win a bulk of the states, and each states are going to have their own issues or whatever, right? So this whole thing about so in my opinion, it's a very simplistic sort of positive spin of the thing, in the sense that the winner is the federal nature of the Indian polity. And the loser is basically this whole autocratic one person or one set of party and person can pretty much run the Indian state and rule it forever. Be it a Hindu kingdom or be it a secular kingdom, that's besides the point. But I don't think that's going to happen. We are going to be a amalgamation of these 26 odd states and union territories, and things are going to change and evolve, and parties need to be nimble and have their feet on the ground. While India as a country overall will have these fiscal economic policies which will set on its growth for development, each state are in different kind of stages of development, and especially with the whole number of seats being up for review in 2 years' time, it becomes all the more important to view India as a unity, as a combination of all these states and look at it. So to that extent, this result will give a bit of a kick on the backsides of all the parties, and everyone will have to have their own set of policies for each of those states. Regional parties necessarily being evil as being portrayed in some of the press of the popular media, especially those from the BJP supporters, I don't think it's actually accurate. Since I come from a state wherein regional party has been ruling since I was born and probably continue to rule till I die or whatever, they have the rule, and our state is not doing too badly, right? So to that extent, I'm a bit sanguine about the prospects. Yes, the opposition narrative has been pretty bad and very dangerous, as both Akshar and I think Akshar was the one who pointed out. I completely agree with that. But then, if I'm not trying to justify or condone by any means what the opposition is doing, but then if you have a very dominating kind of a BJP and Modi who wants to run the country, then I guess the opposition did whatever it did, even though it was below the belt. So that's the larger level kind of a summary from me.
Just one comment on what KJ said, right? I mean, I get it that, I know you like cooperative federalism, but in the Indian context, cooperative federalism mainly becomes a fillip to the various fault lines. It becomes a fillip to the fault lines of caste and language, right? So in the name of cooperative federalism, what you see is casteist strongmen calling the shots in different states, and then trying to bargain for their pound of flesh at the center, right? And to me, that's unfortunate. That is the unfortunate development from this election. I think Indian elections were becoming more and more presidential. Now, while that has its issues, I was in a way happy about it, right? Because we have this clear separation of executive and legislature in that case, right? So but unfortunately, what has happened now is we seem to be reverting back to uh, 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 the genius of the parliamentary system, right? Where you have 540 distinct elections, each with its peculiarities, throwing up confused verdicts, and perhaps weak central governments, right? Which is not necessarily a good thing.
Shall I go next?
Yeah, sorry. There is a reason BJP lost so many seats in Haryana. I had a power outage at my end. Right. So my two bits, I think the big winner in this election is Akhilesh. I think Akhilesh has Akhilesh is what really stopped BJP and NDA from coming back in a big way. And I think the big loser in this election is Aam Aadmi Party. I think Aam Aadmi Party was seen by a lot of people as a replacement for Congress. And if Congress gotten rejuvenated, then there is no way Aam Aadmi Party is going anywhere now. And the fact that Mr. Kejriwal's arrest has now just does not even make any headline. And suddenly all the attention that Aam Aadmi Party was getting. So I think other than the fact what Shrikant was saying, that the fact that we are back to Indian politics looks like it will be again anchored around caste. And for that, Akhilesh needs to be given credit, and he's the one who's come back stronger. And that at least for the foreseeable future, I don't see Aam Aadmi Party going anywhere. Those are the other two big takeaways.
So yeah, for me, I have to completely agree with Manish. Akhilesh was the difference, and I have to say Mamata Banerjee as well. So she has now held her ground 2 times consecutively. Maybe it's not her credit. Maybe it's because of the state she is running, and she starts with a advantage in Bengal with the demographics over there. But still, she has managed to win despite 15 years, 20 years, whatever anti-incumbency. So those two, I would say, are the winners. And from BJP side, from what I know till now, Odisha, Telangana, one seat in Kerala, which was unexpected. So Manish here is going to eat his shirt or whatever he said 2 months ago. So Kerala was unexpected, and someone like Shivraj Singh Chauhan, who who has worked hard for 20 years, who has been in all eyes mistreated by the central BJP leadership, and yet he delivered 29 on 29 with an exceptional with uh, additional vote share, is something that has to be like appreciated.
Right. I know for those who are listening this podcast and haven't heard our podcast that we released around 10th April, I had said that I'll bet my shirt that BJP will not win a seat in Kerala. But in my defense, I also said it was too close an election to call and that we don't know what will happen in UP. So that's that. And Shrikant's just commented something that Hema Malini won with a larger, Hema Malini is a larger winner than, her vote. She got, the winning margin was more than winning margin of Modi. Yeah.
Well, why Hema Malini? Rahul Gandhi won by 3 lakh votes versus Modi's 1.5 lakh. So from Raebareli.
Right.
Yeah, just
Mukunda, your thoughts?
Yeah.
Mukunda is out.
No, I'm here. I'm here. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Your thoughts. Who won? Who lost?
Yeah, I actually think, in some sense, short term, I don't think anyone's really won or lost. I think India is still roughly in the same position it was before. So it's like a status quo of sorts. Because with the coalition that Modi's about to bring, he'll be able to still effectuate the necessary development goals that he has in mind. Because I think the parties that are joining with him share that. I do think the loser, to be honest, is the idea of India being a non-Western Hindu country or nation, because I think in some elements of this is like one of the good things that would have happened with some level of BJP winning ultimately would be like there would honestly be a discussion of what does a Hindu country look like, what are the values the Hindu country would have, what sort of economic policies and
social policies will it effectuate, and then what are the fundamental principles that it governs by. And I think that discussion has to be tabled again. And we're once again still stuck with a system that's given by the British, and the engagement of the values that India still plays with are British values. I mean, India, in that sense, is like brown British land, in at least politically, insofar as like the political structure. And so that's where I think the big loser is. But I think the winner, honestly, like right now, is the BJP one, and India is still development is still going to happen, which I think is the most important thing in the short term.
Right.
As
KJ,
far
anyone else?
as the sorry, I'm just butting in that as the only non-Hindu on the panel, I can get to tell you what the Hindu view of life is, because I happened to read this quote a few days ago, that the gods are paid by sacrifices, the rishis by study and asceticism, the ancestors by getting children and offering the funeral cake, and lastly, other men by leading a humane and inoffensive life. So I think that it's not a British system. It is actually, there is an Indian mindset. People want to lead a humane and inoffensive life. It has been damaged and distorted, but it's a workable system.
Right. On that note, should we wrap it up, or anyone else has any other comment to make?
So I have just a comment to make here. We talked about how Aam Aadmi Party and Congress played an excellent social media narrative. So that has also resulted in a lot of disenfranchisement in the 18 to 30-year-old. So even his Axis My India, who failed in his exit poll predictions, already his data was saying a 50-50 split in the younger voter, which was 60-40 or even higher than that in 2014 and 2019. So that is a worrying sign for BJP going ahead, that the young are disenchanted with the politics. And I talked to many BJP sort of I would not say BJP spokespersons per se, but the of a lot of the Hindutva supporters on Twitter, lot of them were underestimating Dhruv Rathi. Everyone was saying it is the BJP trolls and all the moe people who are watching Dhruv Rathi and Akash Banerjee and all this Ravish Kumar, all these people who have been like getting lot of views. But maybe they should also eat humble pie and talk about how they were in their echo chambers and they were seeing what they wanted to see. And BJP did not go on offensive against any of these influencers, social media influencers. And Instagram, I have seen a lot of BJP supporters also fall into the anti-BJP propaganda over last 1.5 years, and BJP has been very complacent on that part. So that needs to be flagged. And yeah, I am still a glass half full guy. So I st- I I do feel that as our friend KJ here, I don't necessarily feel that a minority government will not be able to do things. So it has to be done differently with some quid pro quo, maybe with some corruption. But maybe let's just hope that they are able to pass bigger things than a brute majority was, because they have to take in the consensus, because history tells us that Vajpayee, Manmohan Singh with his nuclear deal and Narasimha Rao with his reforms were able to do tougher things when they were in the minority. And apart from demonetization and GST, Modi has not taken any ground shattering decisions. He rolled back the land acquisition bill, he rolled back the farm reforms. So let's wait and watch what happens in the coalition era.
So that's an interesting point, Gaurav, about social media. I think in 2029, people who so far have voted in India, their idea of politics was not shaped by social media. To the extent that the population that's going to vote in 2029, 2034, those voters, their idea of what politics is, what India is, will be heavily influenced by social media. So yeah, maybe social media should not be taken as lightly as somebody like me takes it. Ki nahi, it's just noise at the end of the day. I think we all understood the power of WhatsApp, but now the power of YouTube was also sort of kicking in.
That Dhruv Rathi has got 3 crore views in many of his videos. That is not an insignificant amount. Even if let's say 50% of them are social media amplified or by bots, 1.5 crore is more than anything Modi is saying. None of Modi's videos have got even close to that views or viewership. So yeah, especially in the young, we are seeing the backlash, and I have been seeing it for 1.5 year now.
Sure, sure. Right. This has been a long episode. Maybe we'll pick it up again in another episode and finish off or cover some of the points that we possibly missed. Umar Sab, aap kuch keh rahe the, you were saying something.
No, I was just saying the same thing. We'll wrap it up here. Thank you very much, everyone. I think it's been a good episode and we had a lot of interesting discussions. Obviously, everyone must have thoughts that they'll think of later and wish they had put in there. And we can add text and pictures to the post if people have other interesting ideas to add. We'll put this up as soon as possible, Manish, and then we'll see what happens.
Certainly, we'll do that. We'll try and
Yeah.
post this week.
Yeah. Just one postscript. We did not talk about larger Hindu nationalism project, about those Kathi and Mashura, Kashi Mathura Baki hai. I think all of those issues are going to take a backseat now for 5 years. So yeah, that's
For 2 years. For 2 years.
maybe, yeah, maybe 2 years.
Right. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for joining in.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.